We're with Paul Zientarski. Paul is a PE guru for Naperville Central for many, many years, the department chair and PE teacher. Thanks for joining us, Paul. I just have a few questions, just one major question, really. What are some challenges that you faced when implementing the Learning Readiness PE program?
Many challenges. First challenge is getting phys ed teachers to know that they have to change how they go about doing business. They have to have a more active class. They have to spend more time doing cardiovascular exercise because that's what really activates the brain and getting it ready to learn. The other challenge is finding champions in the academic field to help you out. Teachers that will, once we get the brain in motion, it's the responsibility of those other teachers to keep it in motion by having active classrooms as well. That's really important. The other thing that's important then is collecting data so that you can convince people that what they're doing is of value. Then that sets in place proving to the administration that this is a valuable intervention tool, and then they help. The big problem with administration is scheduling. It's hand-picking some of these students and scheduling them by hand in some cases. In our school, 3,000 students. So we're looking at 750 roughly freshmen that we have to go through and pick out some students who we know are struggling in classes, hand schedule them in a phys ed class, and then hand schedule them in those academic classes we're trying to affect, making sure that with teachers who are going to maintain the philosophy of keeping them active through those classes initially. Cost, I think the big cost goes into the phys ed department in terms of making sure they have heart rate monitors. You have to have heart rate monitors. The cost now, it seems, on that particular item is coming down. I know Polar has a great new system out where the students are monitored. As soon as they're done as soon as they're going through their exercise, that is collected on an iPad by the teacher, has all of that data. All of that then is emailed home to the students and emailed to all of the parents. So parents know exactly how much time students spend in the zone in a particular class day.
Is there an app for that too? Is that what?
No,
it's through Polar.
It's
okay.
through Polar. And I think the cost for a 40 system setup is around $3,000. So that's really not a big expense when you think about an intervention that's going to help students. But those are the biggest things. Obviously, giving the teachers in the classroom the freedom to allow students out of their desks, to get them up and moving. You have to have teachers who are willing to do it, but administrators who are willing to say, it's okay if that class is a little bit noisy. There's good learning going on in that classroom. Sometimes it may seem chaotic, but there's good learning. It's the paradigm shift of the classroom teacher going from being the sage on the stage to facilitating the learning. Here's something that you need to learn. I will help you learn it, but you need to learn it on your own. We have to remember that Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle didn't teach their kids sitting in 4 rows of 5 rocks. They walked through the streets of Athens and they experienced it. The Socratic method of education is you learn it, now you go teach it to your peers. When we know that we can give that up and not be this sage on the stage, that's big. And that's hard for the academic teachers to change.
Mm-hmm. Now, how about students' perception of the program and maybe even parent perception of the program? What have you done with regard to that?
In our school setting, the students thought that they were going into a special PE class, and they thought it was a special PE class for special ed students, and that wasn't the case. We have an entirely different program for our special needs students, but it was breaking down the thought that they were going to be in a special PE class that was going to limit their abilities, especially those who came to us thinking that they were athletes. And so we had to tell them, first of all, this class is going to be harder than a regular class. The only thing that these freshman students in this class were going to miss was going to be square dance. For the boys, that wasn't a big problem. For some of the girls, it wasn't a big problem either. But they were going to do all of the same things, only the expectations were going to be harder. They were going to be more active. Every other day, hopefully, was going to be a cardiovascular day, somehow, some form. And all kinds of different forms. The other thing that's important to realize when you're dealing with these students, they don't have the ability to concentrate for 20 minutes, let's say, on a treadmill. So doing short interval bursts of exercise are really helpful in getting them to get their heart rates increased over time. So it's just looking at how you go about doing business a lot differently.
You said scheduling. Now, let's say in elementary, it's a matter of trying to place some of your core academics right after your PE class, and if you're, yourself deciding when things are going to be done in your classroom, your third grade teacher or whatever, that might be something to consider.
Absolutely. I think if you're going to teach some hard concepts at the elementary level, teach it after a phys ed class, and if you're lucky enough to have that phys ed class in the morning, come back and reteach it after lunch when they've had recess to break, because we forget that you can't teach a tough concept one time. It has to be retaught over and over and over again. And if you do it in short bursts of learning and proceed it with short bursts of exercise or movement, then it's going to be of value. So if you're not blessed with a phys ed class early in the morning, before you teach that hard math concept or that reading concept or whatever it is that you know that your assessment is going to be tied to, put some movement in your classroom, teach that concept, come back either after recess or after that later on PE class and reteach it again. Go back and revisit that. See if they have in fact grasped that concept. And I would do it even one more time. If you can do it, and then the next day revisit that.
Now, for a PE teacher, if you're a PE teacher, you really need to be in communication and maybe even educate your classroom teachers as to what you just said. And that's not always an easy thing.
Right. I think you as a phys ed teacher, you need to say, look, the kids in PE today are going to get a good hard workout. Today would be a good day when they come out of my class to give them something hard. But at the same time, phys ed teachers, go to that academic teacher and say, is there something I can do in my phys ed class that I can do a review of a concept you're teaching? If it's mathematics, that's easy math. If to do all kinds of different locomotor skills or team skills or sports skills and do counting and adding and multiplication tables. Do it when the students are working on balance activities or at the end of a short burst of exercise, and then they come and do a review or incorporate it. You start at this end of the gym. Here's your problem. Solve that problem, run to the other end of the gym, find that answer someplace, come back and verify it, and then pick up your next one. You have to skip across, you have to roll across, you have all kinds of different things. So the coordination of two teachers combining to get not only movement in the classroom, but also understanding those academic concepts that are important for kids to walk away with, that's dynamite.
Huge. Thanks, Paul.